Should I just stop caring about my wife? Is that the best thing to do? She says that she's not sure if she's in love with me anymore. She wants separation, or we are separated. And it seems as though she's really distancing herself. It seems as though that she's fine doing family time things, but she really doesn't want much to do with me intimately or in the relationship. It seems like, at least right now. Yeah. We've learned to add that onto the end of a sentence, thinking about our wife. This is how she feels right now. She may change. She may change how she feels any moment, or she may not. The guys asked this question, just stop caring about my wife. Is that the best thing? Is that the gist that I'm getting? We're going to talk about that here today on this Man to Man call. And here, of course, within this brotherhood, within Great Men Move Mountains and this Man to Man call, we want to live a life with freedom, of choice, of responsibility, of passion. And we want to make the most important promises to ourselves, which usually includes who am I, what am I all about, and what are the hills that I'm willing to die on as a man. And if we don't know those things, who am I, what am I about, and what hills am I willing to die on, it's really hard for a woman to respect us or feel attracted to us or stay in love with us if we don't know those things about ourselves. So often there's two types of men that ask me this question. And by the way, I'll take a half step back here. For those of you that are here live, I'm curious, go ahead and just punch a 1 into the chat if you've ever asked yourself this question. Maybe you're asking yourself this question now, or you have asked yourself this question in the past. I'm just curious who's actually thought this before. So go ahead and just punch a 1 into the chat so I can get an idea of who's here live. Often men that are asking themselves this question are really in one of two spots. Either A, she really just wants you to step up, and she doesn't know how to say that, or she doesn't want to tell you directly because that would kill the chemistry or the spark, or you should just know what I want. But she actually does want something with you. She actually does want you to step up. So that's one of these situations. And the second is often, or it could be, she really doesn't want anything to do with me right now. So is it best to stop caring about her if she wants separation, if she wants to find herself? But I really don't know if she wants me to step up or if she really doesn't want anything to do with me. I'm not sure about those things. I pulled a couple of excerpts from, actually, this is a Steve Horseman article, Why Caring Less Attracts Your Wife Towards You. And this is on the Good Guys to Great Men website. You can just search Why Caring Less Attracts Your Wife Towards You. And I pulled a couple of excerpts from that. So here we go. Husbands in the situation where she really just wants him to step up, or he doesn't know if she wants anything to do with him. Husbands in that spot tend to have 3 important things in common. Number 1, you may feel constant jabbing energy of disrespect and disappointment from your wife. Number 2, you feel a deep sense of inadequacy, anger, and hopelessness in this situation. Number 3, you actually have no issues with her general requirements. You have no issues doing more, let's say, whatever, work around the house or connecting with the kids or spending time with her or being emotionally available. You really have no issues with those things. You just don't know how to bring that into being. You don't know how to do that. You don't know how to speak her language or be emotionally available or know what the hell she's talking about when she asks you to read her mind. Right? So you're probably confused. You feel her jabbing energy and you're feeling hopeless in this spot because you don't know which way is up. And I've certainly been there before. So what's wrong here? What's wrong with this situation or the man in this spot? And often it's this. You can claim your own values and expectations for how you will think, speak, and act independently from the expectations of others, including your wife. So this man is often not thinking, speaking, or acting independently. He doesn't have his own frame, his own direction, his own drive. He's looking at his wife for that. So what's wrong in this man's spot is that he's chosen to live in compliance with someone else's values and on their terms. And when we attempt to live by jumping through the hoops of someone else, it's only going to erode who we are. There is actually no you there then. There's no you being brought forth from the inside if you're just looking outside, looking to mommy to affirm you, to tell her that this is what she wants, to give you the next list of chores to do so that she's happy. That's not going to turn her on. It's not going to increase chemistry, and it's not going to make you happy as a man either. You know, we can get these dopamine hits of watching TV, having a drink, drugs, gambling, or getting mommy to tell us we did a good job. And that's really what we've accidentally fallen into often in this spot when we're not thinking, speaking, and acting independently. Yes, you care about her as a person, And yes, you want good things, but you don't care what she thinks about you right now. You don't care about her judgments of you. That's what I would implore you to consider. It's not so much you don't care about her, it's that for many years you've cared way too much about what she thinks about you, about her current judgment of you. And you've cared whether she's feeling pain too much, which is crazy for a man to think about. I want to talk about that today. That often we want our woman to live a life of joy and happiness always. We don't want her to ever feel something bad. And what we're doing is we're stealing her humanity. She can't be perfect. We can never live up to that goal, that ideal. And what are we comparing ourselves to if we think our woman has to be perfect and always happy and always joyful? Well, what if I'm not perfect or always happy or always joyful? Is something wrong with me? Am I broken? Am I not offering that to my wife? Can I not be the perfect man? That's where we find ourselves as we put ourselves in that corner of comparing to perfection. If she's not happy, then I'm not happy. And that's where we end up often as men, of really chasing our tail and not living or thinking or speaking independently. So how is this resonating with you guys? I'd love for one of you to come in. I saw John and Chris and Jason, Dan put into the chat that they've considered this thought before. Should I just stop caring about my wife? Who resonates with this spot? Let's talk about this. Meet yourself. Come on in.
I definited resonated with it, particularly right now.
Yeah, John, good to
It's
see you.
one of the
Yeah,
reasons
tell us
why I
more.
joined.
Yeah.
Yeah, short version is my wife and I have been pretty much separated since October, November-ish. And over that time, there's been periods of like in kind of the deepest valleys. Then you'd rebound and have like a few weeks of really positive engagement, and things seemed like we're trending the right way. And then you'd go back to another valley. And right now, I'm definitely like in a valley, and part of it is just like when we originally separated, we kind of had an agreement, right or wrong, I don't really know, but it was just like we're going to separate and do what you want, in terms of like if you want to see other people, see other people. And at that point I really wasn't sure what was going on and really kind of didn't care. But as we started to like get closer together and we started like actually going on dates again, I was like, hey, like if we're going to date each other essentially and get to know each other again, whatever's going on the side has to like stop. And she very overtly was like, I'm not doing that. And so at the beginning I was like, maybe I should be like more open-minded, more patient. Like I guess like it goes both ways. But as time went on, up until like this week, and we had another chat because we were having some like positive moments, and again we had like a nice day together the other weekend. But when I brought it up again, she was so unapologetic about the fact that she's actually now essentially she wouldn't even use the word, but I said, you're dating a guy from work, and I assume all the things that come with it. And she's like, I wouldn't call it dating. And I was like, well, semantics doesn't matter. But I was like, if we're going to date, there's no world where I would date someone, particularly once it's getting to the point where you're making an investment, and have that person like see other people. Like that's just not how I would do it. So yeah, I mean, that conversation, it didn't even like end in an argument because like I was so emotionless and kind of like checked out. Like you only can get spat at so many times before you're just like, I'm done with this. So after that, I was just kind of like, why do I care anymore? Like it's just like, have I just passed the point of no return, and should I just stop caring about her and us and begin to move on? And so that was on Saturday. And normally like we would have the odd text every day. Like we haven't been yelling at each other. We haven't been like fighting. It's been pretty, overall, I'd say it's been pretty amicable. Like certainly there has been like a lot of fights and arguments, but overall it's been pretty amicable. And this is the first time where it's just like, I don't even feel the need to connect with you right now. And the next time I'll see her is on Saturday because we share a dog, and she has to take her to the groomer. And I was like, if I don't talk to you until next Saturday, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I hear you, John. What's been the longest streak that you haven't spoken with her?
Probably a week and a half. And that was a period of like some pretty tense emotions and feelings, and anger towards each other. And even then, when we started to speak again after that week and a half, it was only around logistical. Like I paid the power bill. Like we have a house together as well. She's not in the house right now. This is broken in the house. Who should I call? Stuff
Right.
like that. It
The res
wasn't.
yeah.
Yeah.
Just the responsibilities basically of day to day,
Exactly.
but nothing
Yeah.
relational. Yeah.
Yeah.
So at this point, what do you want? It sounds like maybe this since Saturday, since a few days ago, this might be the first time that you're actually feeling it's like a pushing away of her. Why would I, almost a disgust? Why would I want to be investing in someone, spending time with someone? I don't know if you're being sexual with her or this time at the very least dating her. Why would you want to do that if she doesn't want to do that exclusively with you? It's like this disgust that I was seeing. Is that fair to say?
It is. And it's like, I think it was one of calls with Steve. Someone said it, but it was like knowing what you know now about who you are and what your nuts are and kind of like what you've done. Would you date this person over again? And I was kind of thinking in that context. I was like, if you removed like the history and the, legally binding thing of marriage and go back to like what I stand for, and or even like thinking about it too, is like if I had a friend being treated this way, what would I say to the friend? And I think like I gave it a shot. I think I was like open-minded, and I think like I learned a lot, like particularly when I started working with good guys to great men and in the divorce course, and like finding groups like this out. And it was almost kind of like a three strike thing, because like I we started to do these dates, and she was saying she was really liking them, I was really liking them. It felt like we were rediscovering each other again. And but like at the same time, just the unapologetic like, but I'm still gonna go out with this other person, I'm gonna be physical with him, and I'm not ending that. And at one point she's like, you're lucky that I told you, I didn't have to tell you. And it was just kind of like, I don't like, no, like if that's where you're at, that's not where I'm at. And aside from just the hurt of another guy in the picture, it's also just like from a values or like
Yeah.
who you are as a person perspective, is like, is that the type of person I really want to be with? And I feel like she kind of showed a bit of her true colors there. And it's not, it was almost like a bit of a mind fuck. So I was like, I've never thought she had that in her. And
Yeah.
yeah.
She,
So
I mean,
just
she's okay. So a few things there, and then I want to ask you a question.
yeah.
She's obviously exploring different parts of herself that she hasn't been aware of before, whatever that means for her. I obviously don't know her personally, but on one hand, it would be one thing if she were to say, "Hey, we're growing trust together. I love us dating together. I'm not willing to be exclusive right now because this is the best thing," she might say. For me, she might say this is the best thing for me, but I still want to grow depth with you. She's not saying that. She's saying the whole, "You're lucky that I told you, I didn't even have to tell you," is a power over statement. It's a self-affirming, like, I have more power than you, aren't I hot shit kind of statement. And the way, even when your face was like, what are you saying here?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit more about, you didn't know she had this in her. She didn't have this gear.
Well,
What
I
does that
think
mean for
like to
you
her
is
own
what I'm asking,
admission,
I suppose. Yeah, go ahead, please.
I was gonna say to her own admission, she's always been good at putting herself first, and I mean that in a very positive way, in the sense of like she'll be the first to like know what she needs, and set boundaries and book a massage if she's stressed, or just like really not be ashamed of like, I just need to do this for myself right now. And I actually have always respected that about her, and quite frankly tried to be as good as her at that. And that's something like I've gotten better at now. But then on the spectrum of that behavior, I'd say there's also moments where it goes into like, hey, this is a bit selfish. Like we're partners here, and I understand that like you want to do a girls' weekend, but we also have to like talk about finances. And so going to get a massage and just carving out time is one thing. To say I'm going to New York City and going to blow a bunch of money and I don't really care what you think is another thing. So
Yeah.
not that that would occur all the time, but there was moments like that where it's like, okay, you're one of two people in kind of a partnership here. And I think like we would have arguments like that over the course of our marriage, and oftentimes she would kind of like catch herself after an argument and be like, you're right, I am pretty selfish. And she's an only child, a child of divorce, and she's like her justification is always like, I always had to fend for myself and take care of myself and do what I wanted. And sometimes like I forget that. So like over our marriage together, there have these moments where like she's admitted, I am very selfish, and I understand how that can hurt you. And sometimes she's unapologetic about it. And there's been times where she's like, I really need to change. During this separation period, I've noticed like the selfishness really just go like, I don't even times where she's like, I acknowledge that I'm hurting you and what I'm doing is bad, but I don't care.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's those are the moments where I'm just like, there's one thing about taking care of yourself and, you know, putting your own mask on, and there's another thing knowing that like your behavior is actively hurting another person, acknowledging that it's hurting another person, and still continuing on to do it anyway. And that's where I kind of feel like you're it's like you're scorched earth, and like you don't care what happens, which is a bit upsetting to me, because like one, it sucks to, you know, be part of a separation and potentially a divorce one of these days, but it's just another thing to almost feel like, have you always been that way? Did I turn you into that? Is this like something I just didn't notice? But like either way, the person I thought you were is not that, and that also just feels like a bit like you were deceived.
Mm. Yeah, certainly. The feeling of being deceived when you went in on something together, being in a relationship, a partnership together. She's obviously a smart girl, and so she's aware of that. But then to move into, okay, I need to do this for me. Part of that is healthy. I don't know her. I don't know your situation. Part of it is healthy. Okay, I'm not going to take responsibility for the inherent pain that you're feeling of this chapter of our life. But she's made the decision to go see other men while you're still married, and she's made the decision, I'm assuming, for the separation. Yeah, she unilaterally decided that she didn't want to be married with you. She wanted to be separated. Is that true?
That's correct. Yeah, she was the one who kind of initiated this, and
Yeah.
like I understood why. But yeah, she's certainly been in the driver's seat. And I think at like one point in January, she was like, I feel you're the bench, just waiting for me to like call you back onto the court.
Oh my God, dude. Yeah.
And like I understand why she said that. And I did correct her at the time. And I get why you're saying that. I don't see it that way. Of the two of us, I'm far more patient and empathetic. And I understand like my role in this, and I understand like where you're at right now. And I also see like a bigger picture that I don't think you see. So like we had that conversation. But like I could tell like from her perspective, I was just like a chump, kind of like,
Oh, she was shitting right on your face by saying
yeah,
that.
yeah. I
Yeah.
was I
Yeah.
was like, I understood what was going on. And I think like we've had not that direct or hurtful of a statement before, but she's kind of said at certain points like, you know, I know you're kind of like waiting for me. And it's only been in the last like 2 months where I've started to correct her and be like, I think I'm reaching the end of my runway here. And I was like, I told her once, I was like, I think you have this like feeling that like I'll always be around for you. And I was like, I don't think that's true. And I don't think you realize that. And the other thing, I was like, you keep talking in the future about stuff as us with marriage, but it's always around physical things like finances or like like trips and things like that. And I was like, I think you like the stability and the physical things this union provides, but you don't want to actually be in it. And I was like, I don't like, she also like, another thing too is she loves hanging out with my family. I was like, that goes away. Like you
Yeah.
can't like not have the romantic element, but then take all the infrastructure and the
Right.
financial stability
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the physical things that a marriage creates. You can't have one without the other. And on Saturday, I was like she mentioned like my cousin's getting married in British Columbia. I'm in Canada, and I was like you're not gonna come to that. And she was like, I thought we like it would be a fun trip. And I was like, yeah, for me to take with my wife, like like
Right.
you're, my parents know what's going on. Like it's almost just like I don't know that you've thought this through. And one of the things like doing this course has helped me is like I know she's stressed. I know she's very confused. I think she's developed. I don't mean this in the literal like a diagnosis, but like I think she's having to be 8 different people. She's at someone at work. She's someone with this person she's dating. She's someone to her family. She's someone to her friends, and she hasn't shared everything with each of these groups. So she's maintaining 6 or 7 different stories, and I know she's exhausted. And I can see her start to like really start to crumble. And I feel really bad for her. And I've told her like I really worry about you, but at the same time, I'm also just like on the lazy river, I guess that analogy. I'm starting
Yeah,
to
I
like
like,
know this inner tube, or at
yeah.
least like the spot's not necessarily for you right now.
Yeah, I
And
hear you. So what's your question about your at this point for your own self, or what do you want at this point for your own self?
for me, for my own self, it's been kind of like weird. I work in tech, and there's been a lot of tech layoffs, and I got the axe along with like 2,700 people on Thursday. And it's not the first time I've been laid off. It's kind of like something you get used to. But like I realized like I'm not stressed about that at all. Like I'll be fine. I'll get a new job. I'll figure it out. And I was just like, but my personal life is really stressing me out. And I was also like, this is like a blank slate for me. Is like whatever job I get next, like I could stay in the city I'm in, I can go somewhere else. And I started to just realize, like, for better or worse, I'm kind of getting to a fork in the road. And even like how I was receiving my severance payment, I was just like, if I was in a marriage, there's a way to receive the severance payment to put it into my retirement that is far more tax favorable. And I was thinking long term with my wife, I'd probably do that. But I was like, I'm going to need money in the short term, and I need to think about myself and what I need. So it's like, it was just weird to start having those thoughts.
Yeah.
And it's like option A is better for me on my own. Option B is better for us as a couple. But I'm not really thinking about us as a couple anymore. And that's something that's like really started to emerge. And I guess going back to the topic of this course is like, is it right to just kind of stop caring? And like, do you hit a certain point where you do have to like get into self-preservation mode?
Yeah, that's a great question. So a quick story, right? Couple quick stories. My mother's mother, so my grandmother, who's passed away many years now, my grandmother was an alcoholic and a prescription drug addict basically her entire life. My grandmother was. And I loved her, but a lot of the time I didn't want to be around her. I didn't want to be around her like drunk, crazy OCD questions. I didn't want to be around her accusations or her hearing voices or a lot of these things that she went through. And while I have compassion for my grandmother, I didn't want to be around her very much. So I loved her as my grandmother. And I remember Christmases with her and these kind of things, but I didn't want to spend much time around her. So there's this idea that we can love someone, let's say unconditionally, usually a blood relative unconditionally, but we may not want to be around them. I mean, if my sister all of a sudden, I don't know, became a heroin addict and she came over and stole everything out of my house and, you know, kicked my dog and spit in my face on the way out, I really wouldn't want her over to my place very often, but I'd still love her as my sister. Now, the woman that we're with for years, that we have deep connection with, that we married, is always going to have a place in your heart. She's always going to have a place in your heart in some capacity. But that doesn't mean that you want to spend a lot more time with her. It doesn't mean that you agree with her set of values. It doesn't mean you want to grow life with her ongoing. It doesn't mean that you even feel that she's honestly worthy of your attention right now. I'm going to go be with this guy at work and you're just the bench waiting for me to come back to you and let me just take a duke on your face and see how you handle that, right? Like she doesn't even deserve me wanting to take her out, in my opinion, if I'm in your spot. It's just my opinion. So we can love someone, they can have a place in our heart, but we may not want to build a life with them and we may not want to spend much time around them at all, period. And those things, I never considered that possibility 15 years ago, let's say, when I started all this personal work and I went into this field, right? When I switched away from being a businessman and I went back to school for psychology and teaching and went into the school system, and I've worked with families and now I'm men in private practice for 7 years, 8 years. I never thought you could love someone and have a place in your heart for them, but not want to be around them anymore. And I remember my grandmother when I think about that. I remember, you know, my son's mom at this point, which has been 8 years since we split up, that it was that spot. But with that said, John, it seems like there's grieving to do for you for sure. This new identity to think of yourself not married potentially. And then, yeah, it would make a lot of sense for you to not want to invite her to be with you for quite a while, maybe ever, until she shows some kind of desire to actually have depth with you, and you're not the fucking backup, you know, guy on the bench for her to just go to a wedding with to have fun. That's not who you are, right, John?
Yeah, no, that's it. I felt like she's picking and choosing what parts of a relationship she gets to have, like a buffet. And it's like,
Yeah.
you know, I'm not a buffet. It's fixed,
Yeah.
a prefix menu. You're getting what the chef is. You got to get it all.
That's
Not
right.
yeah.
It's all or nothing. I love that. It's perfect. You'd be surprised, maybe you wouldn't be surprised, John, but there's a lot of guys that kind of allow her to pick from the buffet for too long. And a lot of women will do that. Many, even in the chat here, like crazy how common this behavior is. Franklin said, Nevin can relate to you. And like they want to keep, and not that this is malicious or that they're being evil, but women want to keep as many resources, protection, masculinity, providership, support, security. They want to keep as many of those pillars around them as they can. And
It
that's
it
why.
honestly feels like she's like hedging her bets, like diversifying her portfolio,
Yeah.
and like kind of like keeping 3 doors open at once.
She's trying to, and it makes her feel powerful to do so. Often when a woman hasn't ever felt powerful, maybe in that way, especially. So she's feeling this new drug of her life, including the intense drug of a new, man, and all the honeymoon chemicals, neurochemicals that, right? And why would I want to go back to this old story well, I didn't want to be a backup guy either, John. Yeah, that was the spot. I've told that story in different pieces before, but we started dating again. This is again 8 years ago. And most of the time she didn't look like she wanted to be there. She wasn't even really engaged, wasn't even really looking at me. Long story short, we had some conversations and I was still the bad guy from all of the years of the past. And I wasn't interested in being the villain in that story any longer. I wasn't interested in wanting to have a relationship with someone who saw me as the villain of their life. And this is after divorce. This is after months and months of this work, years of my own personal work. And then we started dating again. So a lot of in between of where you are. And I had to decide, no, I want a woman to be excited for me. I want to be excited about life. I want to be excited around the people who I'm the people who I'm around. And I had started dating other women at that point, and many of whom loved being around me and were joyous and feminine and expressive. And my son's mom wasn't. It was like I was the backup plan that she was just putting in a couple minutes into so she could do the rotation or whatever the hell she was doing. And it's not what I wanted any longer. So I said, I don't want to see you any longer. I don't think we should be physical any longer. And she was pissed. She was pissed off at me for taking that away. But it's not the relationship I wanted to have. It was something I had to step up and do. Yeah, thanks for being here, John. Appreciate it. Yeah, that may not be where you are now. It seems like that's what you're considering since Saturday at least. Right? And you're in the right spot bringing this stuff here. Appreciate it. Yeah, I saw Quajo come in. Quajo, oh, there you are. Yeah, come on in and say hi. Good to see you, bud. So our topic today is, should I just stop caring about my wife? Is that the best thing to do? Right? That's what guys often ask. I haven't seen you for a while, Quajo, so come on in. What's life
Yeah,
like for you right now?
yeah. I'd say things are stable right now, but it's always, kind of on the precipice of disaster.
That's well
Yeah,
said. Yeah.
yeah. So interesting, thing that happened over the last week is that my wife took a trip, with our eldest daughter. So she's been away for a week, and that was an interesting experience for me. Having space from being in the same space with her, and just even with the topic of tonight, just kind of growing my own routine, my own space, without hearing like her desires and her lists of requests and tasks, that are always growing, and I'm constantly struggling to, get up to speed with. So having my own space, having my own routine, my own way of doing things. I took care of the younger two girls this whole week. They're still alive. It's things are good.
Yeah.
She's going to be back tomorrow, and it was interesting over the last week. We communicated over the phone, and she would tell me I miss you. She would ask me if I missed her, and the response to that was like, I love you, and I'd say I miss you, but like, do you really miss me? I was like, well, I really enjoyed having space. And I think it's great to have the space so that I can actually kind of feel what you really mean to me. Kind of like
Mm,
absence and space makes the heart, grow fonder. Yeah,
sure.
I do appreciate her that way, but I also really appreciate the space to really kind of just settle into myself. And I think over the course of the week, thinking about the question to you, not caring about her, I've kind of come into just yeah, being myself, not really caring what she thinks I should do or how I should feel, in that sense. So
Mhm.
I think this is a good time for me.
Yeah. Yeah. So have you ever been in a spot, is this new, where you had thought, I'm not so concerned about her judgment of me? This is the first time that you've actually felt that?
Good question. I think I felt this in little spurts, but not in the true sense. I think it was more like I was faking it, you know. But having her physically away and separated for this week really gave me the chance to really settle into, okay, she's not here to pick on what I'm doing and how I'm doing things or looking over my shoulder. And what I'm curious about is how things are going to if things going to go back to normal, when she's back tomorrow, or am I going to be able to maintain this like level of, yeah, this is your opinion and this is mine, and and I'm fine with it. And yeah, you can express your opinion, you can express your annoyance, irritation, or whatever, and I'm just going to remain, true to what I feel. But the trick is staying stable and staying emotionally and not reacting, not getting defensive, or not getting scared with her, expressions. That's what generally will cause things to go downhill.
Yeah, I absolutely. Kwejo, I just had this vision of it's like you being a dance partner that understands the dance and is happy to lead and invites her to lead. She doesn't want a mannequin for a dance partner. She doesn't want you to just to like, okay, I got to stay centered in myself and she can have whatever opinion. It's not about being a robot. It's not about being, stiff. And I know you know that up here, and we've talked before. And so what I'm feeling is, oh yeah, I want to bring that into the rest of my body. I do want to be a good dance partner. I want to be a tree that flows in the wind, that bends in the wind, that isn't broken, right? That isn't pulled on your face by. So she will absolutely test this. And this is how it's naturally going to go. She's going to push in. She's going to probably criticize like she has in the past. So how do you see handling that differently? Just like thank you for your advice. Let's talk about this later. How do you want to handle this differently than maybe you have in the past when she looks over your shoulder and criticizes?
Yeah, I think it's important for me to separate myself from her opinions, and just see where I am and where I end and where she is apart from me, and to say, hey, yeah, I get that this is what you think, this is your opinion, and maybe even kind of communicate on the empathy front. Just, hey, yeah, tell me more about why you think this, or like, try and kind of understand where she's coming from. And if she's able to convince me, then that's my choice to respond that way, or to kind of stand firm, or say, yeah, this is my way of thinking, and share that as well. So I kind of make it more about an exchange in communication as opposed to a reaction of emotions.
Yeah, there's 3 levels to this work. Level 1 is just reactionary emotions. Level 2 is being able to talk and communicate without much emotion, right? And then the third level is to have joy and more of a spiritual presence in that moment where the two of you are kind of seeing the vision of the future deeper than just this moment. It's like this moment is a conduit for the joy and connection and depth of passion that the two of you want to have. And both of you always have that sort of just behind your words. That's the third level of where we're going here, that every man can lead their woman into that kind of relationship. And women want that kind of relationship. They really do. And so when we go through from just emotional reaction to, okay, communication, she's going to want more emotion than that. She's going to want more emotion than just flat communication and logic. So she's either going to push back into just sort of the original surface level angst and criticism. That's one way she can go. The other way is you lead her into more of the depth and the future vision kind of emotion. So if you try to meet her at a logical level, like, let's talk about this, and I'd like you to convince me logically of your point of view, she's going to go into emotion. She's going to go back into this level of 1 of emotion. But what you want is to lead her to emotion that's actually like future envisioning. So when you're talking with her, part of your goal, with all that said, part of your goal is to have this almost like joy. You know that life is going to be joy. Life is going to have challenges, as you said when we first started talking. And that's okay. Most of this stuff is water under the bridge. Like, that's the feeling. And if something is a hill you're willing to die on, then you say, oh, well, that doesn't work for me. You dating another man doesn't work for me in relationship. It's just a non-starter, basically, right? So for instance, hey, baby, it seems like you're trying to help right now. I'd appreciate it. Don't talk over my shoulder. Or, hey, I'm not okay with you criticizing the way I put my dishes in the dishwasher. Now, most men are terrified to say something like that because of the retribution that's going to come thereafter, right? Well, that's often because we've been hiding ourselves. We're afraid of her. A woman hates it if we're afraid of her. Like, hates it. She wants the opposite. She wants her man to not be afraid, to be able to embrace her when she's panicking, let's say, and be able to stay calm if there's financial troubles, let's say, or able to stand up for what he believes in a calibrated way. But if you've never said, hey, such and such isn't okay with me, then we're really doing ourselves a disservice. We're shoving our power away. We're not offering her, honestly, the adult agency that she desires. She doesn't want to be at this bickering level 1, and she doesn't want to stay at the logical level 2. She wants a man who can lead her to that level 3, that adventurous vision. She has no practice doing that, so it's going to take some time. But that's why you've been coming to these calls, you've been learning, you've been studying, we've been talking. Kwejo, it feels like, I see here in your face that you want what you're saying, that you want this, and now it's time to practice it. So what's the biggest concern when she comes back home or when you're around her? What's the concern as far as practicing what we're talking about?
I think it comes down to me and my emotional stability in responding to her words and her communication. And I mean, I've gone through periods and brief seasons where I have practiced and I have been that kind of stable, masculine leader that is not fazed by her ups and downs and her moods and her, outbursts. And I've seen how it's affected her, where she's felt like, wow, okay, it seems like you're taking all my barrage and you're not crumbling, and that was a great time. And look, it's funny, that happens whenever I'm going through like a focus time of reading a book, like The Way of the Superior Man, or What Women Want When They Test Men, or things like books like that. When I'm reading them, I feel so like great, like
nice,
and it really spills out into how I'm interacting with her. But
good.
as soon as the book's over and I'm like trying to do things on my own, then things start to spiral again. So I definitely need a way of incorporating and practicing on a more consistent basis until it becomes more natural.
Okay, yeah, very well said. There's something about the routine. So the books are good, of course, but there's something about what you're doing and the state you're putting yourself into. So it's not just the books which help. It's you, though. I want you to please see that that's from within you. You are doing that. There's many men who read those books and don't have any change, right? But you're using it somehow to affect change, and that's coming from within you. Yeah, you're learning, you're growing your wisdom, but that's coming from within you. Good stuff, Kwejo. Yeah, there's been lots of support for you in the chat as well. Jace has been in there. Of course, John and Franklin have been there. Patrick put, if you look at any criticism as an opportunity to set boundaries, you respond rather than react. You don't reply to the specific, but to the broader vision and path to that. Yeah, absolutely. Where you're wanting to go, the vision of where you're wanting to go. It's very well said, Patrick. Good stuff. Love you guys being here.